Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League Mode. My name is Pete and today we complete the aftermath of the trade deadline, including the All-Star weekend. The last episode was pretty heavy on the trading, we also made a move, and we now have one more second-round draft pick available after shipping Sheldon Mack off to Phoenix. That also freed up a roster spot and we're going to take care of that in this episode, but let's get things started with some action. We have a game to play against the Toronto Raptors. Now, last time I also mentioned that we're going to experiment a bit with our rotations, and this game marks the starting point. As you can see, Kuzma is starting at the small forward for us, and Tyler Lydon as his backup also has increased minutes for this game, while Mo Harkless is simply sitting this one out. And Kuzma will have his hands full defending against DeMar DeRozan, but then again, if we never challenge him, we'll never see what he's actually worth. Now, the story of this game is summarized pretty quickly. The Legionnaires fell behind quite early and by halftime the game was pretty much decided. We both shot and rebounded pretty poorly in this one, and so in the end we suffer a 24-point defeat in Toronto. One of the main reasons for that, the already mentioned DeMar DeRozan. He scored 42 points on an incredibly efficient 61% shooting performance, and he also did his fair share of work on the defensive end with 3 steals in total, and his hot start to the game put the Raptors in the driver's seat early, and they never looked back. On our side, the most noteworthy performance likely Bryce Johnson, who put up 24 points and 7 rebounds in only 17 minutes of action, and Kuzma in his role as the starter tonight also not too bad. He had 20 points, but I have to admit a 32% shooting performance, not the best night he had so far. The ever-consistent Josh Richardson added 15 points, and Zhou Qi put up 13 in 13 minutes, so despite the loss we still have a few bright spots here. Up next, we go up against the Hornets, and I decided to go with the same rotations again, just to give Kuzma another opportunity, and while we once again lost this game, he did have a solid performance. Kuzma put up 9 points and a team-high 13 rebounds in 30 minutes of action, and with that actually had one of the better stat lines tonight. The only issue is still the shooting, this time 4 of 14, so below 30%, that definitely has to improve going forward. Now let's also talk about Tyler Lydon real quick. Over these last 2 games he played a combined 39 minutes, and in those 39 minutes he was only able to score 9 points and grab 3 rebounds. Now we could move him out of the rotation for the rest of the season, but I actually think we should give him some valuable playing time now that we can afford it, and see if he can't show us something a bit more promising. So for the next game we put Mo Harkless back in the starting lineup, and starting at the power forward will be Tyler Lydon. This time Hernan-Gomez will sit the game out, a decision that I made because Lydon is a bit more similar to him than to Bryce Johnson. Kuzma's playing time still around the 25-minute mark, so let's see how this squad does against the Washington Wizards. And not too bad, while we still lost the fourth quarter decisively, we held on to the lead and came away with a 4-point victory at home. And not only that, look at the performance of Kuzma in this one. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, all of that on an 82% shooting performance, while also shooting a perfect 2 of 2 from behind the 3-point line. But Tyler Lydon with a solid performance as well. 13 points, 7 rebounds and the steal in 24 minutes, nothing too spectacular, and shooting 3 of 7 from the field could also be better, but if you can be that guy to come in for 10 to 15 minutes a game, who can make a few 3-pointers, grab a few rebounds and get to the free throw line, that is really all I ask from him. He desperately needs to improve his shooting though, because at the moment he has one of the worst shooting percentages on the team, but again the guy is only 21 years old and still has a few years to develop. Now the next game is our first matchup against the Las Vegas Aces, the 2 expansion teams facing off against each other for the first time ever, but we're not going to make that big a deal of this. As a matter of fact, we're going to leave the rotations just as they were, so Hernan-Gomez will get another night off and Lydon will get the start again, and who knows, maybe we can also be successful with that rotation again. Well, doesn't really look like it. A poor second half, especially the fourth quarter, costing us the win here. And I wish I could say that despite the loss we had some good performances, but sadly 15 points and 3 rebounds from Bryce Johnson remained the stat line of the night. And with that we have reached the All-Star break on a 20-win, 38-loss record. The 20 wins actually much better than I had expected at this point, and good enough for 13th place in the Eastern Conference ahead of Indiana, Atlanta and Miami. And with All-Star break upon us, let's also have a quick look at the rest of the standings. In the East, the Cavaliers back in control, although the Raptors and Pistons both not too far behind. And in the West, the Warriors unsurprisingly dominating the conference, followed, although at a distance, by the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then, rather surprisingly, by the Utah Jazz in 4th place. Our scoring leaders at the All-Star break, Steph Curry and James Harden, both with 31.4 points per game, and our first player in the ranking here, Josh Richardson, with 13.5 points per game, appearing at rank number 71. The league's rebounding leader, Rudy Gobert, and that might be a reason why the Jazz are where they are in the standings. And also interesting here, Westbrook still in the top 5, actually in the top 3 this time, grabbing almost 12 rebounds per game. And 8.1 rebounds per game from Deontay Davis are good enough for spot number 29 in the ranking. The league's assist leader is clearly Chris Paul, who puts up almost 12 per game, followed by Westbrook, Wall, and teammate James Harden. Our first appearances at rank number 48 and 50, Tyler Lydon and Yogi Ferrell, both with 4.6 assists per game. Now, with about 60 games played, let's also have a look at how the award races currently stand, and the race for MVP promises to be an interesting one. James Harden currently in the league, but both Curry and Westbrook are also making a good case for themselves. The most promising Rookie of the Year currently seems to be Lonzo Ball, and with 12 points, 7.5 assists and almost 2 steals per game, he would certainly be a good choice here. Markelle Fultz, though, averaging 16, 5 and 5, definitely a solid candidate as well. If you're missing Ben Simmons in this list, then one of the reasons might be that he has only played 28 games so far this season. Maybe you remember that in the first game against us he got injured, and that injury actually took him out of action for quite a while. For 6th Man of the Year, Rudy Gay is certainly a deserving candidate, but seeing a rookie like Teodosic or Fox win the award would certainly be interesting as well. Defensive Player of the Year, I think this one will be decided between Gobert and Drummond, which is actually a bit of a shame because Drummond is not that good defensively, at least not good enough to be considered a worthy candidate over a guy like Gobert. Now, the most improved player, I would like to see this award go to Norman Powell, to be honest, who right here almost doubled his scoring performance compared to last season, but for the moment 2K seems to think that CJ McCollum is the guy, even though he only slightly improved his scoring by 2 points per game, and despite the assists being up a bit, I would still give this one to Powell. Now, one more thing, like I said, the All-Star break is coming up, and unsurprisingly, we of course have no one represented in the actual All-Star game itself. We also have no one from our team participating in the 3-point shootout or the slam dunk contest. However, we actually have 3 guys taking part in the Rising Stars Challenge. For the team of the Stars, Zhou Qi has been selected, so despite very limited playing time, the big man getting some recognition around the league. And on the Elites team we have 2 players, number 1 Tyler Lydon and number 2 Deontay Davis. And that game actually is up next, and with players represented on both sides I simulated this one, which led to a rather dominating victory for the Elites. A quick look at our guys, although nothing too spectacular here. Tyler Lydon with 8 points, 2 rebounds and 3 assists in 23 minutes. Deontay Davis with 4 points, 8 rebounds, a steal and the block in 15 minutes. And on the other side, Zhou Qi maybe with the best performance of the 3, only 5 points but a game-high 10 rebounds as well as a block, definitely showing that he can hang with the rest. Up next we have All-Star Saturday Night, and I thought I could give you at least a quick recap of this one, so let's start things off with the 3-point shootout. First round, Klay Thompson already putting up one hell of a performance, only missing 2 shots for 31 points in total, which was then actually beaten by Kyle Korver with 32 points, also missing 2 shots but none of them a money ball. And so the standings after round 1, Korver, Thompson and Lowry advance, Curry, Irving and Harden are out, and in the second round Thompson actually improved his performance, this time only missing 1 single shot, 33 points, pretty much unbeatable at this point, and after Kyle Korver finished with only 18 in the second round, the winner of this one, Klay Thompson. Now for the slam dunk contest, I would have loved to show you the highlights here. Sadly though, every time I try to watch the contest, the game froze midway through, and this right here is footage from my 5th recording attempt, I believe. Marquise Chris very likely would have won the contest here, but like I said before, Rondé Hollis Jefferson could get a second dunk off, the game froze, and I had to reload again. I then had no other choice but to simply simulate the whole thing, and this time the winner, Derrick Jones Jr. The All-Star game itself then ends with a narrow 1-point victory for the Western All-Stars, and I couldn't find any info on who actually won the All-Star game MVP in this one, but I have to assume that with 27 points and 7 assists and also only missing 1 single shot from the field, it was Steph Curry. And with that, the All-Star weekend comes to an end and we embark on the final part of the season. Our next game then a rematch against the Toronto Raptors, and we are once again going to change up our rotations a bit, starting at the point guard for the first time this season Yogi Ferrell, and also in the rotation as his backup Felder. Tyler Lydon, on the other hand, will sit out this one and the next game. The Raptors then once again beat us comfortably by 32 points, but Ferrell immediately with the best performance of the night for us. With 15 points and 6 assists, he led the team in both scoring and passing. Felder with 4 points and 4 assists in 18 minutes, not terrible, but still I expected a bit more. And we immediately jump ahead to the next game, this one against the Philadelphia 76ers, and this one as close as it could possibly be. In the end though, the Sixers squeezed by with a narrow 1-point victory. The good news, Ferrell once again with one of, if not the best performance of the night, 22 points and 6 assists, even though he only made 1/3 of his shots, showing that if he's given minutes, he can definitely produce for us. For Felder, production was once again a bit iffy. Yes, he did have 7 assists in only 18 minutes, but shooting 1 of 8 from the field for only 2 points, also combined with 3 turnovers, that is nothing to be too excited about. Now, I mentioned this earlier, we still have an open roster spot, and for the rest of the season I would like to fill that roster spot with a veteran player. Now, if we look at our roster, a big man might be useful, since we technically have 7, but both Kuzma and Lydon spend the majority of the time at the small forward position, and after the guards already received some veteran guidance from Marcelo Huertas in the first half of the season, I think it is now the big man's turn. And one of the guys I really like for this role, 13-year veteran Anderson Varejao. He played the majority of his career as a more defensive-minded rebounder, and that is exactly the role that I want our young guys Deontay Davis and Cheick Diallo to play going forward, so I think those two guys specifically can benefit a lot from Varejao. He might also be able to teach a thing or two to Zhou Qi, who especially due to his rather skinny frame might have a hard time adjusting to the NBA game, and could therefore use someone to teach him a few tricks. Now, contract-wise, we won't do anything special here. We're going to offer him a simple 1-year minimum deal, no options, basically just a rental until the end of the season. And no surprises here, Varejao happily accepts, and with that our roster is full again. Now for the rotations, I actually decided to keep Ferrell in as the starting point guard. He absolutely made the most out of the opportunities we gave him, and with his contract running out at the end of the season, he might be a possible candidate to bring back in free agency, so a closer evaluation could be useful. The backup spot goes to Ulis now. Felder didn't really convince me here, and the focus for the next week of games is now on our big man. Starting at the center instead of Deontay Davis is Cheick Diallo, and backing him up with rather heavy minutes is Zhou Qi. Like I said, Deontay Davis will sit out this week, and let's see what Diallo and Qi are capable of. Well, first of all, they are once again unable to beat the 76ers, who hand us our 41st loss of the season. Diallo with 10 points and 7 rebounds, nothing too crazy but a solid performance, while Zhou Qi with only 3 points and a single rebound in 18 minutes of action, there is really no way around it, he simply had a bad game. Against the Pistons then we're able to finally turn things around and come away with a huge victory, and Diallo also much improved, 13 points and 11 rebounds, the double-double for him, as well as a steal and 2 blocks in 29 minutes. The shooting percentage not that great, but the rest of the team shot quite well tonight, so Diallo's performance here not a huge negative factor. Zhou Qi on the other hand remains underwhelming in 16 minutes of playing time, only 2 points and 4 rebounds. Yes, he did have a steal and the block, but for a 7'1" big man, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit too demanding, but I expected a bit more. Last game of the week then against the Hawks, and it was a close one. Luckily though, we were able to hold on to the first half lead and come away with the victory here, and while Diallo put up 6 points and 8 rebounds in 24 minutes, Zhou Qi with 5 points and 3 rebounds still behind my expectations for him. Now, I still think that both of them will have a place on the roster going forward. Let's not forget that we're dealing with very young players in their early 20s, and if we're simply a bit patient, I think both of them can develop into serviceable role players. Now, very conveniently, we have also reached the month of March and we have only 19 games remaining in the season, and maybe if we hurry up a bit, we might be able to complete all of those in the next episode. For the remainder of the season, I will continue to experiment a bit. We will once again have a closer look at guys like Alex Abrinas or Rashad Vaughn, and we'll also keep a close look on our record because we don't want that to be too good. After all, we're aiming for a high caliber draft pick. I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to lose any games on purpose, after all the team is bad enough as it is, but if the possibility arises to rest the starter here and there, we might do that and give the other guys some much needed playing time. And that's also it for today's episode. As always, if you like this video, then leave a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, then feel free to subscribe. And of course, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.